couple days ago, BlackMagic released 2 new Cine cameras, as well as announcing a new sensor for a future camera later this year. So in today's video, we're going to be going over those 2 cameras. The first one is the BlackMagic Ursa Cine, and the second one is the BlackMagic Pixis. Let's start off with the big one, the Ursa Cine. Now this is the first of its kind. BlackMagic has made a 12K camera before, but this is the first 12K large format sensor. So we can just scroll down, we can see the sensor tech. Now what's even more insane about the sensor is that it has 16 stops of dynamic range. So it's basically got everything. It's got large format sensor, so it's even bigger than full frame, 12K, 16 stops of dynamic range. It only records in RAW, which is amazing. The only thing that it really is missing is global shutter, and I think that global shutter on large format at 12K is not going to be possible for a couple more years. Anyway, so this is a phenomenal sensor. It's going to have good low light performance because of how many pixels it is, and you can bend down to 4K and 8K and it'll still look awesome. And let's talk about more about that. So we can go down to the calculator that they have on their website, and we can see that if we're doing 4K open gate at 30 with, let's just standardize this in constant quality Q1 for these results. So that's going to get you 6.2 hours out of 1 terabyte, which is great. If you want to do 8K with the same resolution, full frame, it's going to be 1.6 hours. You can do 9K as well, but let's just jump up to 12K, open gate, 30, Q1, 29 minutes. So 12K obviously is going to be absurd. It's got a lot of data, but even at 8K and 4K, the data rates are still manageable. And remember, we're talking about BlackMagic RAW here. So this is 12-bit. This is full RAW control, so you can change white balance, tint, exposure, ISO, all of that in post, which is just absurd. This is not full RAW. It's doing something similar to what Red does, but I don't know exactly how they're doing it because they're not. You know, Red has that issue where they sue everyone that tries to do something like this, but BlackMagic is doing it, and they've been doing it for years on their pockets and Ursas and stuff like that. But these settings are just crazy. And remember, this is a 100 megapixel sensor with 12K. That's just absurd. So the sensor tech in this camera is incredible, but that's not all. Not only is the sensor in this camera just the best I've ever seen from any camera other than like Aries and stuff like that, but that's different. The camera itself has so many features. So let's go up to the top of this website and kind of look through some of the features that we've got here. Apart from the large sensor, it's got a ton of features. Now, because we're recording 12K RAW up to, Q0 compression at, 100 frames a second maximum, which is just absurd. Because of that, you're gonna have to use their own cartridges for storage. You can't use CF Express or CFast or M.2 even really. You need to use their proprietary thing. Now, it does use M.2 cards because they are fast enough, but it's going to use them in configuration to support those higher capacities. Now, the crazy thing about this camera is it actually comes with one of these modules with it. So it comes with an 8 terabyte card, and because it has Ethernet and USB-C, you can access those files off the camera. You can plug this camera straight into your network, and it automatically becomes network attached storage. So you can edit off of the camera with 10 gigabit, which is just crazy. And you're gonna need that speed for 12K RAW files. Moving on from the body, it's got a ton of features and ports and things like that. We can just kind of skip over that. It's got SDI, it's got XLR, it's got tons of USB-C ports. It's got all that stuff, Ethernet. It's got every feature you would want there pretty much. Timecode, all that stuff. Now, it has different lens mounts, so it has PL, LPL, and EF mount. It does not have RF mount, so if you want to use RF lenses, sadly I looked into it. I thought there was adapters. There's not adapters. This is a cinema camera, so you're going to need to use cinema lenses, cinema EF, LPL, and PL mount. And because this is large format, you're going to need a large format glass to be able to support using the maximum resolution. Now, it is full frame if you don't use the full sensor, so you can just use the smaller 16 by 9, 17 by 9, you use full frame glass and you just lose that little bit of top resolution. The full open gate recording is mainly meant for anamorphic lenses, so if you want to use 1.3x or 1.6x or like 2x anamorphics, that's gonna be there for that, especially 2x anamorphic. You can use full 2x anamorphic on this camera. It's gonna look awesome. Now, apart from that and the ports and stuff like that, we got a ton of features. We've got a 1500 nit display. We also have a side display. So the main display is going to be able to flip around, and you can put it back in the camera facing back out or the screen out. And it also has that side display with a little sun hood that automatically pops up. So this is awesome, for example, if you're doing maybe a lot of interview situations and you have maybe 1 or 2 of these cameras and you want to be able to see both at the same time, you can flip out those displays and see both cameras from the same place without needing extra monitors. Here we have all the ports, so it's got everything I mentioned. It's got lens control as well, so that's awesome. It has a USB viewfinder now instead of SDI, so it's one cable for the whole viewfinder, which is awesome. Really, the theme about this camera is simplicity. They just want to build everything into it and not have to worry about rigging up a ton of extra stuff. Like, you don't need an extra high brightness display if it's got one built in. You don't need a bunch of like extra ports for a viewfinder if you just need one. And that's the theme here. Now it has BlackMagic OS, so it's got all the features that all the other cinema cameras has. It has BlackMagic syncing to BlackMagic Cloud if you want to use that for Resolve, and it automatically uploads proxies in H.265, I believe, to be able to edit right away. Now this thing has built-in Wi-Fi, so you can just connect it to a Wi-Fi network without even plugging in an Ethernet cable, and it automatically uploads. You can also use a phone for tethering for anywhere else like that, and that is amazing. Basically, again, the theme of this is just simplicity. If you can be on a shoot and your files are automatically uploading in real time back to an editor to edit, that's going to be incredible for high-speed workflows. For example, if you're a news station and you need your people out in the field to be able to automatically upload that stuff to be edited for a news broadcast in a couple hours, this is going to be epic for that. Now, it has new ND filters. It says they're balanced. I don't know how high quality they're going to be, but they're there. So if you want to use the built-in NDs, it's just another thing that you don't have to add on to the camera. Again, simplicity is the name of the game here. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about on the main page of this website is what it comes with. It comes with a ton of accessories. It says it's ready to shoot, and it really is. As I said earlier, it comes with that 8 terabyte drive, so you can just use that built into the camera. You don't have to spend, $2 grand on something to be able to even use this camera. It just all comes built in. And that makes more sense with the price point. It comes with a carrying case and a bunch of accessories like rails and different mounts and things like that, and power adapters and stuff like that. It comes with battery plates and lens adapters. It's just all there. All you need to use this camera just out of the box is a lens, and that's awesome. Now, it doesn't come with a V-mount battery, but it does come with a plate, so if you want to use a V-mount battery, just slide it on the back. And if you want to use other mounts like a gold mount, there are accessories for that. So it's just got like every feature, and it's super easy to use. Now, let's go over to the tech specs. Now, overall, this camera has a ton of features, and I don't know of really anything I would add to it other than maybe global shutter, but I think that would be extremely hard to make, so there we go. Now, as far as frame rate goes, let's scroll down here. We got 12K 3x2 open gate, so that's the entire sensor at 80 frames a second. We got 17:9, 12K at 100. We got 12K at the Cinema 2.4x1 at 120 frames a second, which is it's just crazy. 12K at 120, it's ridiculous. Now we got 9K, a Super 35, so that's going to be a pixel by pixel crop in on the image if you want to use Super 35 glass at 100 frames a second. And then we got 8K and 4K open gate at 144 frames a second, so that's the whole sensor bending down to 4K and 8K, so you're gonna have better low light advantages there, and the files are gonna be smaller, but it isn't a true pixel per pixel. It's oversampling basically is what it is, but it still offers raw controls. 8K and 4K with that 2.4x1 is going to be 224 frames a second. Think about that. That's not 8K 120, that's 8K 224, which is insane. I don't know of any other camera that offers that. Another thing that I've noticed just looking at the body design is there are a ton of mounting points, so if you want to rig this thing up, you could totally do that. It's a cinema camera. It's built to be rigged out. Now, one thing to note is that this camera, while it is 12K, it's not going to allow you to output that outside of recording. So, for example, BlackMagic does have 8K streaming hardware, and I believe this would be compatible possibly over the Ethernet, but it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to use really in a broadcast sense. And broadcasting in 8K is really not a thing that is common. So while this does have the resolution, it's not necessarily going to be compatible with 8K streaming, but 8K recording, it absolutely is. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this camera does have Wi-Fi and a network connection. So it says here network management. It's got SMB for file sharing, and it's got all the things you would need to connect this to a network to upload things automatically. And just to put this in perspective, this camera is its own NAS. That's just crazy. you can access and edit off of the camera. If you don't have a high performance SSD to work with, you can just do it off the camera. And there is 8 terabytes of built-in storage that comes with it. And there will be also 16 terabyte modules that you can pop in there. And all these modules have a reader if you want to do that separately. But anyway, besides all that stuff, that's just crazy that this even exists. Built-in Wi-Fi. It's high performance, they said. I don't know what exact specs that they're running. I'd assume it's probably Wi-Fi 6, something like that. But still, having a 10 gig network connection on a camera for SMB and file sharing and syncing is incredible. All right, let's move on to the next camera in this series, the Pixis. Now, for a long time, people have wanted a small box style camera from Blackmagic Design, and they've finally done it. Now, this camera shares a lot of similarities with the new full frame Blackmagic that came out last year, the Pocket Cinema camera. I think that's just what its name is, the Pocket Cinema camera. No long name. Anyway, this is the Pixis box style. It offers a lot of features, kind of as a hybrid between the Pockets and the Ursas. So it's got SDI out. It's got an EVF. It's a larger box style. A lot of its features are just the same as the Pocket. Basically, every feature is the same as the Pocket, the larger new Pocket. It runs on the same batteries. It has the same frame rates and settings and all that kind of stuff. Has the same audio capabilities. It's basically the same camera internally, although it has a new form factor, and it's going to be great for rigging out and using in more professional settings. The bigger the Pockets have gotten over the years, the harder they've been to use, and this kind of just resets it all in a nice way. It uses the same battery plates. Sadly, this camera does not appear to support V-mount batteries. That would be awesome if it did, but it doesn't. It does have SDI out, and that's super important, and it does support CF Express cards. And CF Express cards have come down over time, and now they're even cheaper than CFast 2.0. So all around, it's a great camera, and it offers a lot of the features from the Pockets and the Ursas. Now, this isn't a broadcast camera, so you wouldn't be using it in that scenario, although you could because it does have SDI. But again, for broadcast scenarios, the Ursa broadcast is probably going to be the best way to go. Now, one of the things that this camera lacks that the broadcasts and the Ursas have is interchangeable lens mounts. You can only buy it in 3 mounts. You got L mount, EF mount, and PL mount. You don't have the option to switch that after the fact, which is a little disappointing, but it is understandable. There also are no built-in ND filters because of the size and the price of this camera. That's acceptable. I wish there were. I expect that a new Pocket might come out later this year, maybe with this sensor with NDs, maybe a Pocket Cinema camera Pro or something of that nature, but this does not have that. But everything else internally is basically the same as the Pocket, and it's only $500 more expensive, which for a feature set, I'm happy with. The last thing before we go is the new 17K sensor announcement. They announced it that it's going to be shipping later this year, hopefully, and it's going to be 17K larger sensor. It has the same photo size as the current 12K large format, but it's just physically larger. So it's going to be extra wide. Now, that will ship in a similar camera. It's going to be identical to the current 12K model, just no built-in NDs. And they said in the announcement that it was just too big to fit built-in NDs in that camera size, which is understandable. It's a physically massive sensor, but the dynamic range and the pixel performance is supposedly going to be the same. So we'll have to see that. But 17K, I feel like we're getting to a point where it's getting a little absurd. You know, we're talking like IMAX levels of resolution, and they even said that in the video. So I don't know where we're going to go from here. I feel like if the sensor tech is getting to a point with Blackmagic Design where we're seeing high dynamic range, large sensors with extremely high resolutions, 12K, 17K, I feel like the last thing to kind of perfect is going to be rolling shutter. If they can get a global shutter version of this camera, have we hit it? Is this like perfect sensor level? I mean, you can always go up higher in resolution and frame rates, but it's got so much to offer. So that's gonna be about it for today's video. There's a lot that these cameras have, and they also unveil DaVinci Resolve 19, which will be interesting to see new features, as well as some other products in the broadcast world and networking, which is super cool, but we're not gonna get into that video because I don't want this video to be super long. So that's gonna be about it for this video, but before we go, I wanna tell you about our sponsor. Artlist. If you're a content creator like myself on YouTube, or even have a large production company, you're going to need stock assets like music, sound effects, and footage, and Artlist is the best place to get that. With different plans starting with music and sound effects to Artlist Max with everything you need, Artlist is the place to go. If you want to get 2 months for free on your annual subscription, check out the link below. Thank you to Artlist for supporting the channel, and back to the video. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. If you have any other questions or thoughts about these cameras, let me know in the comment sections down below. Again, nobody has these things yet, so there's no reviews out or anything like that. These are super interesting. But anyway, that's going to be it, and I'll see you in the next video.